We've explored breakthroughs, we've met the innovators, and we've gone deep into the science of healing. And now, we close this CTTACC series with a leader who reminds us why this work matters far beyond the lab. Retired Major General Dr. Lester Martinez-Lopez is a physician, a decorated military leader, and a national voice for medical innovation. Born in Puerto Rico, he began his journey as a U.S. Army medical officer, rising through the ranks to become commander of the U.S. Army Medical Research and Materiel Command, where he oversaw global efforts in trauma care, infectious disease, and battlefield medicine. After retiring from active duty, he returned to federal service, culminating in his most recent appointment as Assistant Secretary of Defense for Health Affairs, where he oversaw the health and readiness of millions of service members and their families. With wisdom earned from both battlefield medicine and federal leadership, Dr. Martinez-Lopez brings our series to a close with a message that transcends science. When innovation is guided by purpose, the impact is limitless. Please welcome General Lester Martinez-Lopez.
In the not-too-distant future, a revolution is brewing, one that will change the very fabric of our existence. It's a tale of cells that hold the key to unlocking the mysteries of life itself. Let us venture into the unknown, for in this age of stem cells, anything is possible.
I've seen some beautiful...
I am so honored to have you. You are the last guest after 3 days of filming here, and we've saved the best for last.
Yeah, sure.
You always have a smile on your face.
I try to.
Oh, well, General Martinez-Lopez, we are so honored to have you. And I actually saw you from a distance 2 years ago. I got to hear your keynote speech during dinner, and I was so inspired. I think after that I ran up to you just to tell you how inspired I was. And yesterday, or the night before, you were giving an award to Dr. Atala, a very well-deserved award.
Absolutely.
And you had gone over in your intro to his wonderful work. You kind of gave a historical background to what you've seen along the way, especially with stem cells. And I thought, wow, this is a perfect person to ask about all of the innovation, because I'm sure just in your position as pretty much the head of medical research for the Department of Defense, you have seen all kinds of stuff, and probably stuff you can't even talk about. But I want to pick your brain to what you saw. How did stem cells even become a topic of discussion? Because at some point in your timeline, that seemed to become actually a topic. So do you remember when that was?
Yeah, well, professionally, we start seeing some news and some science coming out in the 80s.
In the 80s, okay.
But mostly embryonic stem cells.
Okay.
And they were mirrored in a lot of controversy. If you're too young to remember, but really it was, and rightfully so. So there were some ethical issues of how to derive those cells, and so that really bogged down the field. Mm-hmm. And as I was saying the other night, I remember like today when Dr. Atala published that, wait a minute, we don't need embryonic stem cells. We can use other cells. In his case, amniotic cells. Mm-hmm. That really opened the floodgates to research, and the rest is history, right?
Yeah.
Adipose-derived, MMSCs, or whatever other kind of cells you wanted. But the thought, up to that point, they thought that the only pluripotential cells were the embryonic. And all of a sudden, we say, no, hey, wait a minute, we can do all kind of things with all the kind of stem cells. And we can grow them in the lab, and we can grow it to volume, and we can make a difference therapeutically.
Right.
Wow, that was game-changing.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting to be there watching this game unfold. As I was saying last night, the night before last, then everybody embraced the technology, because you see, now there's no ethical quagmire into the discussion. They're really readily available cells. And the endpoint, everybody wants to achieve the endpoint to cure many of the conditions we have. Wow, that really worked out great.
Well, so I consider you a pioneer in the sense that you were very early adopter in the sense that you could identify that this was a real potential.
Yep.
Yes, the ethics of a source being an issue, but I always feel like in the world of stem cells, there is an aha moment, perhaps a problem that you have long time tried to solve and can't solve, and you kind of see the potential of a cell and the light bulb goes off. When was that moment for you?
I think it was evolving, I'll say, in the early 2000s.
Okay.
Obviously, we were engaging in the war. We knew we needed to get some solution sets that we even had no clue how to address them. So what I saw was a potential in the technology, and I don't know what the technology was going to bring me, but I knew I had a lot of holes to close.
Like what? What were your biggest challenges?
Oh my God. I mean, can you imagine the trauma our service members were undergoing, and the surgery and the therapies we were able to give them was shorthanded.
Yeah.
So, if you... family trust their kids to come into the Department of Defense to do the service to the country, and in exchange, they expect us to do the best to return the kid better than when we got him in, right? So we were coming short. So we needed to close that gap. And I think I didn't look at a specific solution. I was looking at all the gaps I have right and left, as we discussed, whether it was blood or whatever it was. If the technology can help me close that gap so we can take better care of the service members once they're injured or ill. It's not just about injury. It's also about illness. Then right on. That at least that was my thought process.
So was it your background was you went to medical school in Puerto Rico?
Yes.
And, there are many doctors.
I'm just a family physician.
Yes. Well, I was going to say, at this conference, you meet so many brilliant minds. I mean, just the brain power here is just incredible.
Absolutely.
And you take all of the expertise. You have so many doctors, so many researchers, so many of this. But there is only one general that I know of that is quite literally in charge of, the medical military complex. I mean, how did you end up there?
Oh, the Lord has a plan. I don't claim that. So, I have to be, I'm not saying that. I really believe it. The Lord has a plan, and sometimes if you try to map it, it won't work. It's just doors open and you end up there. And then what you're trusted to do is your best, right?
Yeah.
And part of being the best is you have to trust your team. So I'm as good as my team. And then the real challenge is how do I make my team successful? Right?
Yeah.
And part of the deal is to keep an open mind of what kind of technologies can make my team successful, right?
Yeah.
How do I define success? Well, we have solution sets for the service members we're taking care of, right? So that's a goal line. At the end of the day, that's a goal line. Are we making a difference to those service members? And the answer is yes, check. I hit a goal. If the answer is no, then we need to keep working.
So is that how you got into research? Because there's a gap between
the Lord has a plan, and He has a really good sense of humor. I did research early on in my career as a family physician. I'm actually a Rangers physiology study and some other things, but very small thing. Most of my career was kind of in thirds. 1/3 of my career clinical, 1/3 of my career with the line, being division surgeon, FORSCOM surgeon, working with the issues of war and how we troubleshoot that. And 1/3 of my career in leadership, we call command. Along the way, I got my master in public health at Hopkins. That really opened my mind because, I have the clinical background, but then I bring that opened my mind to look at populations and how can we better serve them. So it's always a kabuki dance. It's what my patient needs, but also what my population needs, right? So what are those trade-offs and how do you go about that? So believe it or not, right before I was a commander for DTRIC, which is all the research, as a one-star, I was a commander of something called the Center for Health Prevention and Preventive Medicine, which is like the CDC of the armed forces with worldwide issues. So we were, in those days, we were in Kosovo and we were working issues of depleted uranium. And we were looking at some, chronic exposures to airs. And those kind of weird questions you hear in the news all the time. So, again, the good Lord put me in that position. And the reason they put me there is, you have leadership position. You also have a public health background, so it would be a good fit. So, and before that, all I did was command hospitals. I was CEO of hospitals, right, on the clinical side. It's like, how does this work? Okay, so you go there, you do your best, you have a good team, pay attention to them, allow them to flourish. And it's amazing what we can achieve. So in this journey, the Army, for whatever reason, thought, okay, now you're ready for your second star. And I thought, okay, now I have my second star. I'm going to command again in hospital, something I've been doing during my career. No, I ended up in research. Yeah. But all that background really played out to sort out what's of value or not, what can may bring value, and how to deal with the complexities of, because now the complexity goes up. Now I have a lot of bosses, right? I have the Congress, I have a lot of people in the executive branch, not only in DOD, but outside DOD. We're working issues like anthrax, and so the very large scope of defense. So all that career preparation prepared me to get there. So by the time I get there, I may not have the technical background on all of them, but I have the clinical and the public health and the policy background to be able to sort through them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I don't think that was by design, but it worked out okay. Yeah. And for me, it was like being a kid in a toy store, Now imagine. Every day, my day will go like this. I will have a series of people coming over to visit. Some people were from academia, some people were from the government, and they're looking for my support or they're looking for whatever it is. And I'm talking about the best minds in the country.
Yep.
And they'll come over and talk to me, and they have to explain their science or what they're trying to achieve, right? So it's a one-on-one lecture.
Okay. It's like a pitch.
Isn't that amazing? They can pitch, but I can ask.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a one-on-one, and you keep doing that one-on-one for years. Can you imagine how much stuff is in this head? So now you see commonalities, right? So this guy a month ago came out and talked to me, and now this lady's coming with something a little bit different, but yeah, it's related to that. Hey guys, have you talked to each other? I have an idea, right? Those kind of things start popping in your head. And so I think if to do part of the job was to be like the bumblebee or the bee trying to pollinate different ideas and trying to bring people, again, looking for solution sets that we needed.
Yeah.
And so it's neat because you can shape a little bit the field just by being privy to things that many people were not privy to, but then mix it in the head and something good may come out at the other end.
So then the first stem cell technologies, what did you see?
The first, actually, what I saw in the 80s, in the 90s, there was a lot of jogging for this is remember, this is the time of the embryonic stem cells. Some people put intellectual claims to a bunch of lines, and there was a lot of jockeying for the business space of those cell lines. I don't think that served, in retrospect, I don't think that served very well. So I was not too keen to that because they were like, these are my lines now, let's go and see how I use them, and let's go and see how I can profit from it, right? Once the gates open, and now we have, and now it became more accessible, right, to the field. So you could be someone that interested in this, you didn't have a claim to a different line, but who cared?
Yeah.
You can create your own cell line and see how that could make a clinical difference. And it's amazing. I mean, so it was kind of, I don't know if the word is right, but it's like a socializing the field.
Yeah.
And then you saw, the initial applications to trying to differentiate cells. Like what Tony did with on actual tissue, but then on treatments. At the beginning, we were trying to look at can we, the initial, it failed, but we injecting cells to the heart or injecting cells to the brain to see if they could regenerate tissue. And then we found out that we couldn't find where all those cells were, and then we found out that really they were doing inflammatory things that we've been talking about. They have a big inflammatory. So I remember being, people, we didn't know what we didn't know. So there was a lot of hope that we could just grow these cells, differentiate them, inject them, and so on and so on, all the damaged tissue would be repaired. Well, it's been a while. I mean, maybe the day will come, but now we are understanding better how those cells interface. How can we leverage them for different uses that was not what it was initially intended for, right? And it's amazing. I mean, absolutely amazing. I mean, the last couple of days, it's been amazing. I mean, I would really charge on the older I get, the more I realize in this game, a lot of things is regulated through cascades, like inflammatory cascades and stuff like that, and the cells are part of that milieu. And as we understand it better, then we can leverage the capacity of these cells to do a lot of things more than just grow tissue.
Right.
Yeah,
And if that inflammatory process can be mitigated somehow or controlled by
or modulate.
these,
I mean, it's just a matter of modulating up or down, right? Because really, I was, again, one of the great things, as I said, I mean, I spent time with this great scientist that spent all his life on the inflammasome, trying to understand how it works. That's the basic structure of the inflammatory response in every single cell in the body. So it comes from the beginning of time. And if you understand that, then you understand the down effect of the cascade. That's how that cell, that membrane inside its cells start triggering, and then how that interface, right? How they interface with cells, how they interface with coagulation factor, how that interface. So I think structurally, we were taught to think, well, there's a coagulation cascade with all these factors. There is a shock cascade with all these factors. There is a sepsis cascade with all these factors. And my mind is coming to say, that's baloney. There's one cascade.
Okay.
All come out from a basic core process. The question, there may be different expression of that cascade based on the need of the body.
Yeah. And based on the person, perhaps.
Correct.
Yeah.
So now we need to understand a little bit more of the basics. And then as you go down the cascade, okay, what turns this side of the cascade off that now is shifting to the left? Example, how do the inflammasome starts, there's an acute phase to inflammasome that is triggered by anything, infectious diseases, heat, trauma, whatever.
Yep.
And the cells kicks that out, right? And you can see the typical IL-6, all the actors. But then if it's sustained, if the signal is sustained, then you go to the chronic cascade. You turn the sucker on, you turn the other on, and now you see fibrosis, and you can see a lot of different things that you don't use in the acute phase. You don't need it. You need to take long-term care of this problem. How does that work? Can we modulate that? Right? Can we modulate? Because sometimes we want to modulate the fibrosis piece, but sometimes you want to down-regulate that. Right now, the problem is, we do this every day and no one thinks about it. So I cut my arm, or I cut my finger, small cut, the body does their stuff, activates the acute phase, and then goes into the chronic phase, fibrosis come about, and I end up with a scar. The problem is when it's dysregulated, right? And quite often the body, for whatever reason, goes berserk, and instead of doing just enough, goes overboard.
Overboard, yeah.
And then once you go overboard, you end up with clinical pictures like sepsis or clinical pictures like shock, right? And people die. So a process that was intended to heal you now goes out of kilter and kills you.
So it's not the thing that necessarily hurt you. It's not necessarily the bullet that got you, but
Correct.
It's your body.
Point in case.
Yes.
So example, you may have a small infection. Sometimes you don't even find the infection, and you lose a patient with sepsis.
Yeah.
And you say, but how in the world did this happen?
Yeah.
Well, you got a trigger somewhere,
Yeah.
and that trigger gets magnified for whatever the reason, and now you end up with that storm. It's an inflammatory storm. You as a doc trying your best to regulate that down, but sometimes you're not successful and you die. And you scratch your head, and even sometimes you may find the source. You say, but that's not big enough to cause what? Death in this patient. But the truth of the matter, if the system gets out of kilter, now it's not the infection, it's not the bacteria or the virus that kill you, it's all that. And the same thing in COVID, right?
Yeah.
So what killed patients in COVID was not the virus itself.
Yes.
It was that inflammatory cascade that is out of kilter, and that's what most of the time will kill you out.
Yeah.
So as we mature the science, as we understand better the basic principles and what roles stem cells, what roles everybody plays, then I think we'll be in a better position to help our patients by down and up regulating. Example, what I was talking about yesterday. I really believe we need time. So we're not going to have enough blood. We're not going to have enough blood products. So is there a way I can down-regulate the shock? Because that's, at the end of the day, that's what will do you under. I mean, if you don't have any blood, if you exsanguinate altogether, obviously, you're not going to have enough oxygen. That will do you. But let's say we're successful. And still, if I don't give you blood, the shock, that inflammatory will take over. And now that's the cause that most likely is going to do my patient under. So if I can down-regulate that early on, a medic can give something that can down-regulate that, right, in the field. And it can buy me hours or a day. So when I get a patient, I don't get a patient in shock, that cannot breathe, that the kidney is failing.
Yeah.
But it's someone that I can work with, I'm good.
Yeah.
If I cannot do that, then we're in trouble, right? So again, we need to go back to the basics. The basics is not about us. It's about the service member who got injured. How do I make them back as whole as I can? And so we need to, I know what we don't have. Just like when you asked me at the beginning with stem cells, how can you use it? I don't know how can I use this. But I see a potential that can be used to help me immunomodulate the shock response in such a way they can buy me time. And by doing that, I can then provide the therapy, the surgeries, and stuff that will really bring benefit to that patient. Right?
Yeah. So you think in trauma, as well as I think in a host of other conditions, you would say the immune response is key?
For everything.
For everything. Okay. Yeah.
It's a very basic process to everyday living.
But it's so funny because the immune system has all of a sudden become the spotlight. Sort of everyone's talking about it now. It's always been there.
It's always been there. I think it's like anything else, right? We didn't know what we didn't know. Actually, I don't know how many bad things I learned in medical school that were altogether wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So because it's a journey. It's a journey of discovery. Every day we discover something new. And then we have to regroup and say, holy cow, what I learned, I had to start. I'll give you an example of something I learned in medical school. I finished medical school in 1978, but in those days, they would teach us that the brain, by the age of 25, all the cells were done. So there was no regeneration of brain cells. Mm-hmm. So I remember a toxicology professor would say, okay, every time you have an ounce of alcohol, you're killing thousands of brain cells, and you're done, right? And it was not until the late 90s that we really say, well, that's baloney. There's actually stem cells in the brain. And they're the ones that are responsible for the memories, right? So you need new cells to do connections so you can store memories in your brain. So all that nonsense goes wrong. Now they're not enough to. I think we have stem cells everywhere in the body, and they do small repairs. But when they're overwhelmed, right? So then that's when failures come about, so then you have to bring other system, and the immune system is responsible to orchestrate that one.
Right.
So if the stem cells are not enough, then what do I bring? What other cells can I bring to? Then okay, so bring fibroblasts here. Just let them lay out some scar in this, since we cannot repair it.
Yeah. So as we've learned more about the immune system and people are talking more and more about it, and the focus is feels entirely on that. Do you see a sudden surge? I'm going to speak to your public health background. It seems like there's an awful lot of autoimmune disease happening now. It's just immune system disorders. Is it after COVID? What is going on? Do you have any speculation on what you think is going on?
I don't think so. I think, I really don't know, but I don't have a data to tell you one way or the other. But my gut feeling tells me a lot of this is what we have learned.
Okay.
So in the old days, we lose patients and we scratch our head, and we didn't know why we missed them, or patients would be sick. You do kind of workup you have, and still you come empty-handed. And then the poor patient will be all frustrated because there's not much we could offer, right? But as we develop the science, now we understand it better. So many of those patients that, they have chronic bronchitis, or they have, we lump them up in some weird idiopathic this or idiopathic that, right? Idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. Idiopathic means we don't know. Now we understand, wait a minute, this is a dysregulation of the immune system. Now we understand a little bit better, and as we move on, I saw some of the lectures today, well, it may be a genetic defect. And then as we understand that genetic defect, now we have a target. Maybe we can repair that genetic defect. But 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, we had no clue.
Okay.
We just knew, we put a fancy name to the diagnosis. The patient will be frustrated. We say, well, maybe it's immunologic. We'll give him some steroids or something in the very limited armamentarium we got then. The outcomes were not necessarily nice. Now, my God, we have a lot of choices. And it keeps growing, right? So I think a lot of what you're seeing is like, oh my God, there's all these cases. Maybe there were all those cases, except we have no clue. We just have sick patients and we didn't know why.
So when you're going back to the immune system, if our immune systems are, let's say in a trauma incident, going haywire, you often have, I don't even know what order of magnitude, but hundreds, thousands of cytokines that are going out of. Yeah,
hopefully, most of the time they don't.
Okay.
But once in a while they do.
They do. Yeah.
Especially, I think, when it's overwhelming. Example, we know that if you lose more than 2 liters of blood, is it 2 liters or 2 pints of blood? But anyway, if you lose enough blood, you trigger a mechanism. It's an overwhelming mechanism, right? So below that, fine, body can repair. Over that, the body says, whoa, this is too big. And then all the inflammatory cascades start coming about.
Sure.
So in some people, it's under control. In other people, it's out of kilter. Why the difference between one and the other? I'm sure it would be some genetic makeups and maybe some circumstances of the ages, right? But it does happen. And then we're in trouble. So it's just like with the example of COVID. So I got COVID. I didn't have fibrosis of the lung, and thanks God, and I did fine. But other people react very differently, and they end up with, they die because there's no lungs anymore, right?
Yep.
So what's the difference between me and them? Probably it's a genetic difference. We're learning, but we don't know yet. So just one example of many.
So we've talked about acute disease, so like trauma.
Yeah.
I've always wondered, especially during the last few days, listening to what I consider the superheroes on the field, the things that they're seeing, the pictures I'm seeing are things I've never seen before, not even in the movies. I mean, it's just, in that moment, when you get a patient like that, are you just trying to save the life? It doesn't matter what the aftermath looks like?
Absolutely. Issue one, I need to save that life. Otherwise, what is this for, right? So I'm doing magic and to do step one. But then I bring everybody and their mother in to help me with step 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
And that's what we've been doing. So, there are patients with brain trauma that if you have asked me as a young doc, oh my God, is that worth saving, right? You have to, it's an ethical response, but you trouble. Nowadays, it's absolutely yes. Yeah. Because I've seen kids that I said, no way. And now they're in the Olympics and that kind of stuff, doing great. So who am I to say, yep, no, it's amazing. What I learned is how pliable the human body is. It's amazing. So things that you say, no way, it turns out, yeah way. Other times, it may not be that, but how do you know which one is which? Yep, so we are full forward. We're going to do whatever it takes. We'll save it, and then we group everybody like the minds you saw there here in this meeting, and those minds who help us close the bridge. That you have to be hopeful that will be the case. And so far, I have not been let down. Are we there yet? No, it's a journey. Is it going to be perfect? No, it's a journey. But every day is getting better and better and better.
I suspect that the same challenges in military health are comparable to those in civilian health. Would you say that we have the biggest challenges in acute care or chronic care?
Both.
Both equally?
Yeah. Who's on first, the egg or the chicken? I mean, it's just no. But you know, the other part of this journey is curiosity. I have a friend. He's Dr. Roxanne Anderson out of Boston, and he's a dermatologist. So, going back to stem cells, you know what a keloid is.
Of course.
So
I have one right here.
So it's really tough
Yep.
to deal with keloids, and some patients they really traumatized by it, especially burn patients and stuff like that. So he started toying around. He does lasers and that kind of stuff. So he said, okay, what kind of injury that it can create in the body that can be repaired by stem cells? That was his question. So he took a laser, teeny weeny thing like less than a millimeter wide, I mean a couple millimeters deep, and burn it. Whoop. And then what did he find out? The body healed to normal in that hole. Absolutely to normal. So you see all this big keloid around, but that teeny weeny injury in the keloid was healed with normal skin. And he says, okay, what if I do it again and again and again? So right now it's in the market. There is a machine that burns lasers, I don't know how many lasers at once, at the right depth. And when it heals normal.
Wow.
And then you repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat. And it's not that the keloid goes away, but now it's elastic. In those spots, it's normal skin.
Right.
So it's more functional, right?
Yeah.
And he came out at a curious question. So who would have thought in 1980 or 1990 that dermatologist playing with a laser was going to come up with something like that? It's not that it fixes the keloid issue, right? But in some places around the joints where maybe critical functional, and you can bring more flexibility to that tissue. Wow, that's a game changer, right? So we need more curious people to start asking those kind of weird questions. And in this case, he should start injecting stem cells. He knew the stem cells were around, so the question is, okay, when I challenge them in small amount, can they do magic? And the answer is yes.
They can. So do you think that most innovation, because you've seen it all, right? You've seen all kinds of things. Do you find that a lot of it is that people just happen to discover it? It's by accident, or it's well planned out? What?
It's a little bit of both. But the big breakthroughs is either serendipity or just curiosity, right? And something else I found out is you find a cardiologist talking about something altogether not related, and those are discovered in an area that he has no clue. Because what I'm trying to say is this. If you're an ologist on a particular area, they taught you how to think about that. You have your box. It's very well defined. So your thought process is well defined. You get that same person, ologist on this particular area, to look at an area he's never seen before. He brings a different mindset because these guys were taught to look in a different way of this field, right? So these guys come and say, what, have you thought about X, Y, or Z? No, I haven't. Okay, let's go, right? And voila, there he goes. So that's just in medicine. But imagine this. And I saw it again today. An informatic guy that doesn't know squat about biological system.
Yeah.
And you pair him out with some biological guy that doesn't know squat about informatic systems.
Yes.
AI and that kind of stuff. You match them, they both query a question, they look at it from different angles, and you'll be amazed what you end up at the other end. Now let's go and make it more difficult. Imagine we pair, and this will be the last frontier. Imagine you pair a physicist, a quantum physicist, or a biologist, to trying to understand the same question from two very different points of view, right? It'll take a lot of work because first they speak two different languages.
Right.
One will speak in all this crazy calculus formula, and they'll look at each other and it's like, what are you talking about? But once you break through that, and you bring the thought process, that's where real discovery will come about.
Right.
Right.
And those humans are necessary as much as AI.
Absolutely.
AI is playing a role.
AI is a tool.
Yeah.
It's not an entity. It's just a tool that we use to magnify our computing capacity from our brains, right? We pass that stage. So every time you open your phone, every time you open your computer, in essence, what you're doing is expanding the capacity of your brain to do calculations and look and address issues that if without them, it'll take you forever to get at, right? So we all humans have change with this power. And so AI is not an entity in itself. It's just another tool that will expand our capacity to understand and analyze issues.
In America, do you think that our speed of innovation, especially in the medical field, healthy? Is it fast? Are we slowing down? Does it feel stagnant? Or where are we right now?
No, well, it's always been, let me rephrase this. To get one success, we had to try almost 100 times,
Okay.
right? So if it was a short deal where you say, okay, I have a great idea, and the likelihood of me succeeding would be 90-something %, wow, wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
But that's not life.
Right.
Biological system with all the permutations and all the variability throws monkey wrenches every single day,
Yeah.
right? So example, I'm working on a vaccine. The likelihood of vaccine succeeding is less than 80%. Even at phase 3, when I'm investing maybe $1 billion, right?
Yep.
So in order to sustain a big pipeline of products, what we need to sustain is a big pipeline of risk, and many of those risks are going to fail.
Mm-hmm.
If we're not tolerant to do that, then my pipeline will be very small.
Right.
So I think we have the right amount of size. There's a big investment. By the way, quite often it's the government taking that risk for the initial part of that. So it's a government role. It has been for many, many years in DOD, in NIH, and in places. We de-risk the scientific propositions, right? So we fund it early on, and we may go maybe to phase 1 and risk it. Because we know that's where the high risk is going to be at.
Well, you need those 100 ideas.
Correct.
Yeah. So someone's got to fund that.
Correct.
Yeah.
So are we at the right space? Yes. I wonder, sometimes if the policy changes, what's the downfall effect will be, right? And we have to really think through that and be very careful that we don't throw the baby with the bathwater, so that we really keep the pipeline going, because that's what, at the end of the day, that's what make America great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
But in terms of classical American ingenuity, our ability to innovate, healthy.
That's not going anywhere. Yeah. We have them. I mean, if anyone who wants doubts, you just spend a day or two here, and you understand that, no, it's well and alive. But remember what I said to you when I came on to Frederick. Our job and the job of the senior members of the government is to make them successful, right? Mm-hmm. And when they succeed, and we have a pipeline, everything comes in line. So our patients will get better, the economy will get better. So there's an engine. Mm-hmm. I'm focused always on the patient that they will get the benefit. If that's a no-go, then we're wasting energy here. But then after that is everybody does well, right? And that's the American engine, right?
Yeah. So when you look at, when you have to decide on these 100 things to invest in, and this is our hard-earned tax dollars, and we're going to put it into these 100 things, you're looking at 1,000 things to choose those 100 things. So what are the top 3 things that you are looking for in a new innovation?
No.
No?
You're going about the wrong way.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. For us, the number one issue is what is giving us the most grief.
Yeah.
What are the clinical conditions that are giving us the most grief? Mm-hmm. What are the holes? What are the gaping holes I need to close?
So
that sets a priority, right?
Yep.
And then the next question is, what's out there that can close that gap?
Okay.
And in that, you develop a portfolio, because you don't want to put all the eggs in one basket. Because I already told you there's a high likelihood that many of them are going to fail. So then you develop a portfolio of options with different technologies, not one technology, many technologies looking at the same problem set, right? And then you fund them. And then as they mature, some of them fade away, and then the hard decision is at the end, when we have, let's say, 10 fairly viable solutions, I can only fund 2. For that, typically what the government would do is bring people from outside, peers, to look at technology and rank them. Mm-hmm. And then advise us what would be the best investment strategy.
So It's safe to say that if you are
an eager innovator, whether in industry or in academia, you should put your hat on as someone on your side, like on your side, and identify what a big problem is,
Yes.
and try and have a solution.
Absolutely, because different from actually, DoD has been different from the rest of the government in one respect. When you apply to one of our grants, the first thing you need to explain to us is how is that going to make a difference to the patient.
Mm-hmm.
If you know, I don't care if you're a basic scientist or you're a clinical scientist, if you cannot explain that to us, we're done. Right? We're done. You can go find funding somewhere else, but we're done. So, because it forces you early on to think how your technology is going to make a difference. And by forcing that, then it forces a rigor to really advance it in such a way that you can now consider FDA, what's a path, early on. So you're not surprised, right? Now I have my good technology, I've done all the animal studies, and now what? Well, now there's this thing called the FDA, and I don't have a path. Right, so I think I'm very, very proud of how the DoD team has advanced that concept. Some people resent it at the beginning because they say you're behaving like industry. No, we're behaving like someone that really cared to bring something to the service member, and we don't have time.
Yeah. So do you think that the thought process on how like the investments that DoD has made are often sometimes even contradictory to what NIH does? You know, like NIH can not accept it and DoD can. Like
we have matured along the way, so many of the panels we bring NIH people, and vice versa. They invite DoD people to be in some of their panels. But it's two different things. It's mixing apples and oranges. I think the DoD starts with a clinical question. Mm-hmm. I think NIH starts with I may be talking out of turn, but I think they address it from a scientific standpoint. Mm-hmm. What's the question? Mm-hmm. And I'm saying one is better than the other, is that the aims may be a little bit different.
Right.
At the end, probably we end up close, but it's two different cultures addressing two different problem sets.
Yeah. Both needed.
Both needed, absolutely.
Both needed. Yeah. So when the military has products, are they always FDA approved? Like, can the military have special access?
Nope. Every single product the U.S. military uses is FDA approved.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So it has to go through that whole process no matter what.
You better believe it.
There's no secret stuff you guys have.
There's no secret juju or anything like that. No. And, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. Because if you think the temptation of cutting corners in the essence of operational needs goes away. So you still have to deal. But the FDA, on the other side, if the DoD says this is important to us, then it comes to the top of what's important to the FDA.
Okay.
Right? So if, like when I was the secretary, if I sent a memorandum to the commissioner, said these 3 products are my priority, that goes on the top of the pile of the FDA. And they address it just like that. Mm-hmm. So, like the commissioner of the FDA meets quarterly with the secretary, assistant secretary of Defense for Health Affairs, and they go line by line. Platelets, this, that, the other, and what are the issues? Is it the manufacturer's side? Is it a scientific issue? What is it? Mm-hmm. Because the intent is to cross the line and get it done and make it available. So I've been privy to many of those meetings, and I'm telling you, it works.
Yeah,
it works. But that doesn't mean they cut me any slack.
Right.
So it's just that then we really can work together to meet the requirements.
But for the warfighter population to have such an advocate to take this
Absolutely.
through the process is so critical. So how about us civilians? Who do we have advocating on our end for?
Well, many organizations do that advocacy, but by law this is different.
Yeah.
But I cannot imagine a single solution set that DoD will come about that will not have an application to the civilian population. So especially in the trauma field, I mean, if you look at many of the advancements in trauma, from vascular surgery to burn to all this, I mean, if you skin it a couple times, you're going to see DoD all over the place. We don't take, we don't produce anything. So you're never going to see a product that says DoD made, right? So it will be Pfizer, it will be whoever, the company that makes a product, and rightfully so, they take the ownership. But if you look at where that came from,
yeah,
right? What incipient science brought that in, you're going to find quite often DoD researchers or partners funded by the department moving that needle. So it's okay. It's kind of a silent partner. But I know in my heart that a lot of the products that you see around example, people don't think about, teleradiology, right? Now you go to any hospital, any clinic, and they do radiology, and they just ching, and 2 seconds later they have the picture, right? But no one ever thinks, who came out with that idea, right? 1980, Army.
Wow. Yeah.
Now, the companies make it, Philips, great.
Yeah.
And it was out of the concept that we didn't want to deploy radiologists, and so that wanted the x-rays done in Kathmandu, and then someone in Washington read it, and all I needed to do is read. It's read and done, and now I can clinically do whatever I need to do with a patient, right? And, that's where we are today. Now, most of the radiologists are practicing in their PJs at home watching the films. Yeah. That's how they practice radiology. So probably they'll come after me. But, but it gives them that freedom that there's no way in 1980 they had that freedom.
Right.
And it's a technology-enabled freedom. And look where we're at.
Yeah.
And I can keep adding on and on and on and on. So I've seen a lot of that. I've seen a lot of those negotiations. And again, it's a partnership with the industry and a partnership with the FDA and the partnership with academia and the partnership with everybody focusing on a problem set that we need a solution yesterday, and how we go about it, and a little bit of grit in the mix. And before long, we got amazing things. So that's how the journey is. So
out of all the incredible things you have done, I also heard that you were the brainchild behind AFIRM.
Listen, the brainchild behind AFIRM, I'll give it to Tony Atala. I mean, to be fair.
Well, he gives it to you.
It's okay. I'll give it to Tony. And I have a great team, again. I have Bob Bandry. He was a combat casualty care portfolio manager when I was there. Incredible American, by the way, a dentist, not even a surgeon.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. But fantastic. And can you imagine? I mean, we are starting the war. We know that we have a lot of gaps. And here comes Tony with these ideas, how to use tissue regen.
Right.
In the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And it's not it almost felt like a Star Trek kind of thing.
Yeah, because at the time, regenerative medicine was such a a poo-poo term. Yeah.
And he's telling me that he took this teeny-weeny amount of tissue from these patients, took it to the lab, grew a bladder, put the bladder in the patients.
Right.
And the patients are doing in the early 2000s. So we all go like, whoa. There's a potential to this technology, right? To really help, because we knew what was coming. Right? There will be not malformation from birth, but malformation from wounds.
Right.
How do we close that? Can this technology help us out?
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer.
Yep.
So then the issue is, okay, so what do we do about it?
Mm-hmm.
So how do we fund this? How do we bring mass? Yeah. And the beauty of the firm and the beauty of all the 4 firms, it was not one institute. It was a consortia.
Okay.
The best minds in the country were play.
Mm-hmm.
And the best minds in the country were managing the science. Can you imagine that? Before that, we were competitors.
Okay.
Now I'm showing you my piece of the firm project every week.
Okay.
And you're telling me, well, have you thought about this? Or have you thought about that? Or maybe I can help you with this.
Mm-hmm. So it's like a real-time peer review.
No kidding.
Yeah.
But it's not peer review. No, it's peer review like, wait a minute, I think I know an answer that can help you out.
Right. So they could pivot quickly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You got to fix it like then.
Can you imagine the power of that?
Right. And so, because that and I'm suspecting that's why regenerative medicine had to get bucketed separately, because it had to be dealt with in a different way.
Yeah, but can you for a minute imagine that?
Yeah.
Even in a university, in your same lab, it's very unlikely people will come around and say, I think you're stuck, but let me tell you how to fix. That may happen, but that typically we create an environment of competition. A firm was creating an environment of, nope, the game is not about competition.
Yeah.
The game is about getting a solution to that soldier or that sailor or that airman. We owe it to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's go and stop the nonsense. This is the aim. This is what we're trying to do. So any guys here, anyone with an idea, okay, let's go. And sometimes it didn't work. So like anything else, high risk.
Yep.
And then you have to cancel the project and then put the money into something else. But it was not because you were left on your own to drown somewhere. No. Everybody was pitching in. That was the beauty of that project.
Yeah.
And it was replicated on Firm 2 and was replicated on Firm 3, and now I'm sure it's the same thing in the newer firm. By the way, we need more of that.
Yeah. Well, it's been revolutionary. I think Dr. Atala did present the 7 products. I mean, just each one of themselves, just mind-blowing, things that you've never dreamed of.
And all the spin-offs, right?
Right.
Bioprinting, spin-off. Organ on a chip, spin-off. I can keep going on spin-offs.
Yeah.
That are working their way to the market. I'm not talking about science fiction kind of thing. I'm talking about very mature technology working to the market. And where did it come from? It came out from that project.
Yeah.
Right? They were dealing with issues of, initially when they would do the scaffolding, it was an old chemistry system. And then the question is, can we use bioprinting to do this? Oh, wow, that was beautiful, because I can tailor it just to you, the right size, the right form, shape, that kind of stuff, right? Let's go and try. It works.
Yeah.
And then initially you use it just with chemicals, to do the chemical scaffolding. And then they say, can we put cells in between? So heart cell, right?
Right.
And the answer is yes, we can do that.
Yeah.
Right? But it takes a lot of, but that was not the aim. The aim was not, let's go and do bioprinting. The aim is, I need to create tissue replacement for, let's say, a jaw that was blown away with a shot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now I need to tailor a piece that just fits perfectly there. In the old days, surgeons would go to your hip, cut the bone, and they start shaping it like trying the best.
Yeah.
And then put it in there and do this and hope for the best, right?
Yeah.
Can you imagine if I can take x-rays, see what the gap is, input that into the computer, and the computer
and prints it like in the OR.
Well, we're not there, but let's say in a day I have it, and I can put it back into.
Isn't that incredible?
Isn't that incredible?
Isn't that incredible?
So, but all that came out not as an aim by itself, but as an enabling technology to come about to close a clinical problem we have.
So would you say with these technologies, this is an exciting time? Like, do you see
It's always an exciting time. What are you talking
it's
about?
always exciting.
It's
Equally?
always, absolutely.
It's not a little bit more exciting now?
No.
No?
I think, well, I mean, the exciting and not so exciting piece of it is, when you're a pioneer at the beginning, let's say if we were talking in 2000, my field would be like this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you could manage all that knowledge, and even myself, I could master at least the arching concepts. Now the pipeline is like this.
Yes.
It's huge, right? Yeah. So trying to master, for someone like me that is 1/2 an inch wide, deep, and maybe a couple miles wide, is hard to keep up. Now, for someone in the field that may be a mile deep and maybe a couple millimeters wide, that would be so. It's looking very exciting. I think every day there's some things like wow, and the wow thing is really going to make a difference to the patients. I think patients today are much better. They don't even know where the technology comes from. Don't care. But they're better. They're surviving. They're thriving, and what's coming up is even better. So, what else do you want?
What do you think is the biggest challenge in health today? It can be military, civilian, both. Doesn't matter. What's the biggest problem we all should focus on?
The biggest challenge is. We're not going to have enough providers. As the model is set up today, we're not going to have enough providers to take care of us in America.
Yep.
So said that, we cannot keep practicing medicine the way we have been practicing medicine. We need to really change the way we practice medicine because there's not going to be enough.
How do we do that?
That's where technology comes about, right?
Yeah.
So that's where we need to start thinking in different ways. And you've seen it. I mean, when COVID came about, we did a lot of telemedicine, far more efficient for many conditions. You don't have to drive and park and wait. You just turn your phone and voila, the guy or gal at the other end takes care of your problem and you're done, right? So we have been moving in that lane to trying to change the way we care for. It's kind of funny. I mean, I heard this in California actually, and really resonated with me. Patients don't call for an appointment. Patients call because they have a problem they want to fix.
Right.
So if you don't need to give them an appointment and you still fix their problem, they'll be fine.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Yeah.
As long as you take care of what ails them, right? So to me, by the way, this field is part of that equation. How do we take care of patients? Technology in all forms have to play. So there will be AI, there will be a lot of things, but it's not that AI is going to replace the dog. No. It's how do we change the paradigm, really? What is it that you need? Information? Okay, one way to deliver. Is it really a procedure? Well, different way to deliver.
Yeah.
So
if you're trying to fix a problem, and let's say we have these sets of problems, would there be any benefit to investing in trying to avoid the problems from happening in the first place?
Absolutely. Yeah. We're not very good at that, but yes.
So you think prevention is a huge focus area that we should all be looking at?
Yeah, I mean, it's intuitive, right?
Yeah.
So is it altogether intuitive?
But what do you think the challenge is? Like, why are we not investing more? Or what do you think we're limited? Because naturally there are these problems. So maybe the problems are more evident. Maybe that's the issue. I don't know.
Listen, I just went to the Salk Institute a year ago in Pittsburgh. And it's neat because I'm old enough to remember knowing people with, paralysis walking in my hometown and hearing about people in iron lungs from polio, right? So it was very prevalent up to the 60s. So if you were an American or Chinese or Indian or whatever, you saw it. In those days, it was all over the world. And here comes these people with a great solution set of the vaccine. And now we don't see it anymore. Thanks God. By the way, the virus can come back, but we don't see it in this country, and that is great. But then people, again, they don't know the magic. The magic was that vaccine. Now, no solution set in medicine is 100% foolproof or is 100% safe. Take aspirin, take Tylenol, take whatever you want. Think of the most innocuous kind of treatments you can think. It can kill you. And you may have some bad effects. Obviously, it's a risk assessment, right? So you balance your risk. And some people believe the risk of a vaccine to be so big that then they don't vaccinate, they don't take the prevention. And it's kind of funny. I think a better example of how the mind plays games on you. Many people are really afraid of traveling in an airplane because they think the risk of dying in an airplane is extremely high.
Right.
But they don't think twice about getting into a car. When the truth of the matter, you may die, the likelihood of you dying in a car is, many folds more than the likelihood that you're ever going to die in an airplane. Right? So somehow you magnify risk and you don't fly when the scientific fact is, nope, it's very secure, more so than a car. And you never think twice about getting in a car when, the data is, nope, it's far more risky to be in a car. So the same thing plays in all prevention processes, right? People amplify the risk and they amplify the bad risk, but minimize the positive risk that you're trying to achieve. And so we are going through that right now in this country, but it's a fact. So I don't think science alone is going to overcome this, because this is at the intersection of feel and science. So what are your feelings and what is the science? Quite often we as scientists just address the scientific merit, and then we scratch our head when people say no. When really we haven't addressed the feeling piece of the equation. It's at that intersection where the truth resides. And I'm a big data driver, and it's very important because I just bought a car, right? So the first thing I do to buy a car, I go over and see the safety things, and then I go to the showroom. Why do I go to a showroom? I know all the facts about the car. I didn't have to go to a showroom. But still, you want to feel the car, you want to sit in the seat, you want to look at the car from the side, you want to smell it, right? That's feeling. You intersect the two of them, we have a deal.
Yeah.
And life is like that. So sometimes we minimize the feel. Like, that's not important. No. You're wrong. Yeah. Both sides are important. And I think we need to be better at understanding, to be able to achieve better prevention and deploy better preventive measures. We have to gain a better understanding of that piece and close a gap so they'll feel better at accepting the technology. If we don't do that, then we fail miserably.
Yeah. So in the last 3 days, I have admired the backside of your head, because I have noticed that You are the only one that's attentively listening to every single speaker.
Man.
You're the best student in the house. All of us, we're all fooling around out here, and but you are attentively listening to everyone. And it's
a curious piece of me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because you're technically retired.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Never
retired?
No.
Never retired. So what motivates you?
People, that's a very good question. People quite often, especially in my last job, are you having fun?
Mm-hmm.
And I would say sometimes, I'd rather have 2 root canals than to be here right now. True.
Like in Senate hearings?
Some opportunities that they say, what in the world am I doing here? The issue is not about fun. The game of life is about meaning. Right? So, and a very dramatic example, I'll say, imagine Christ coming back. Hey, Christ, are you having fun? Yeah, they're going to crucify me in a couple of minutes here. It's meaning. So we all should strive for meaning in our lives. Not fun. I think the fun word is overprescribed. So what drives me? Meaning. So if I can make a difference that may reflect a better care for a service member, even today, no brainer, right? If I can make a difference in some other way, help someone, no brainer. That doesn't mean I don't travel, have fun, and that kind of stuff, but that's not really the driver. And I think the more we use that concept because life is tough. Sometimes you grind, and you have to have the grit, and there's nothing fun about some of those terms.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not willing to put up with that for greater good, what are we doing? So as long as everything is fun, you're going to be around, and the moment it gets tough, you walk. Doesn't make any sense, right?
So that would tell me that the fact that you could be lounging in a beach chair in Hawaii somewhere, but instead sitting in this freezing room listening to endless complex science, you're still learning, and I assume there's an objective to that learning.
Yeah.
And therefore, you're still trying to add to the meaning. Because I would look at your life and say, you've added enough meaning to...
Neither you or him, Taylor, or you are off the hook. Yeah. We all contribute in different ways, right? And that's why I say the Lord has a plan. I don't know what He has for you. You have to figure that out. But you can contribute. You can make a difference. Mm-hmm. You can add to the meaning if you allow yourself to do it. Now, if you just want to have fun, you can have fun. But sometimes when it crosses, you're going to have a hard time accepting that you have to get the root canal in order to get to the next stage, right?
Mm-hmm. And it would be applicable whether you're young or old.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. But it's a great trip. It's a nice journey, and along the way, you meet so many great people, and it's fun. That part of it.
What do you want to be remembered for the most?
Oh man, this is getting deep. Probably as a good dad and grandpa.
Oh.
Yeah. Actually, my oldest one is going to college next year, my oldest grandson. We're going to take him in June to Portugal, so that will be his present. And so I'm very proud of him. So I hope the only thing you take to the tomb are those memories and those relationships. So among all the relationships, I think those are the ones that I value the most. So.
Well, our nation is blessed to have you, and continuing to advocate for our health and continuing to learn and find solutions for us and bring them to the table. At the core of it are wounded warriors, but I think for the greater good, the amount of lives you'll impact is...
Thank you very much. And even if I try to escape, Shivani will be on my tail like there's no tomorrow. It's like, okay, I give up.
Well, thank you for your service,
Thank you.
sir. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. It was fun.
Yeah. Okay.
No man's land.